everybody's gonna see it. All you need to know is that we're holding on. Even if we fall, we will rise up, and we're on the path that we believe in. No, we're not gonna stop until we reach it. All you need to know is that we're holding on. We rise up from the dust and claim our throne.
Hi folks, and thanks for watching this short video here. Just want to go over the new APU startup that I'm incorporating into the new Boeing 737 MAX series. And I have to give credit to Paul Sherratt. He originally created a panel for the 737 NG, and this panel is based off that design. So majority of the gauge work in this is Paul Sherratt's work, not mine. I've added some extra panels to make it a little bit more technical, to make it more fitting for the MAX series, but you'll see where the differences are once we get into the panel. So I'm going to go through the startup procedure here, and the first startup procedure is going to be assuming we have ground power available at the terminal. That's not always the case. Sometimes you'll be parked at a ramp, and in those cases you may or may not have ground power, and there's two procedures depending on the scenario. This first scenario is going on the assumption that you have ground power. So the first thing you want to do is open your pedestal and turn on your fuel cutoff valves. And then you want to open up your overhead panel. Now on the overhead panel, you'll notice that ground power available is illuminated right here. That's your indication that ground power is available at the gate that you're currently parked at. Depending on where you're parked and what airport you're at, that may or may not be available. In this case, it's available, so we're going to go with it. First thing you want to do is turn on your main breaker, and then turn on your ground power. And you'll see everything comes to life. Now we got to turn on the fuel pumps. Easy way to remember this is basically from left to right going across. We need to turn off the emergency exit arm lights. We don't need those. Turn on the seat belts. Turn on the hydraulics. Pitot heat. Wing de-icers. Left and right pack switches. And APU valve and APU bleed. And over here, we turn on the APU. Now you'll notice the APU generator light is lit up, indicating that the APU is now active and the needle is rising. And once that gets to the top, you'll notice the APU generator is on. At this point, if we were to stop right here, we are independent of ground power. We're running on the APU at this point. Now I'm going to start the engines. And you'll hear the engines come to life. There's not much of an indication here that the engines are coming to life, but if you look closely, you'll be able to see that the N1 gauge just underneath the overhead is showing some indications that it's coming to life. Engine 1 started, engine 2 started. Now, sometimes if they don't start, you'll have to click this button here to start them. That's not always the case, as is the case in this situation. Now that we have the engines running, you can see the gauges over here are lit up. We're going to turn on the engine generators. And there's two generators. That's unique to the MAX series. The NG didn't have that. I incorporated that to make my switches work. And the engines are now running. Now that we have the engines running, we no longer need the APU, so we can turn that off. And we don't need the APU bleed, obviously. And we set the APU valve to auto. And we can close the, you can turn off ground power, you can disconnect from that. Nothing happens there because we still have electricity running through the system. and close the overhead. Now you're going to look at this panel and you're going to think I'm drunk because we have no avionics. There's no way to navigate here. We only have the horizontal display. And the reason for that is this panel has an IRS system. Some people call it inertial radio system. There's several different names for it, but all meaning the same thing. This has to be aligned while stationary on the ground. So you can't load this aircraft mid-flight. You have to load it while parked on stationary on the ground. You're going to switch both switches on the bottom to align, and it's going to take about 30 seconds for the alignment process to start. And we'll just wait here, and once that alignment is finished, your avionics will become available. And you'll see that happen on the multifunction display as well as the primary flight display. And there you go, you have avionics. And we can close the IRS. And we can also turn off the caution light. Now, a few things that you need to know about this panel, and again, this is Paul Surratt's work, this is not my work, this is the original 737 NG part. But this button over here has two modes. You can have it in rose mode and you can have it in arc mode. You click the middle to get that. That's important when you're doing an ILS approach, because if you're doing an ILS approach and you have it over here, you can't really see the whole gauge, so you'll want to click the middle and switch to rose. Keep that in mind when you're flying the aircraft, because some people have a hard time doing an ILS in arc mode. You're just going to switch that back to navigation mode. Now, I don't have a flight plan loaded here, so normally if there was a flight plan loaded, it would be showing in this area here. I don't have that loaded right now. And I have the engines muted. I did that because I'm recording, but there's the engines running now, and you can hear the sound of the engines running. At this point, we're ready for pushback. The aircraft is fueled up. We're ready to fly. Okay? Now, when you get to your airport, you got to do the reverse. So everything is done completely backwards from the startup. And you'll notice at the top of each display, and this is my work, this is not Paul Surratt's work, there are two buttons.
Miami ground,
here.
American Pacific 446, with
This one here gives
information,
you the newer
request taxi IFR.
American Pacific 446, taxi to holding point for runway 27 left via taxiway Papa, Quebec. Contact tower on
They both can't be
123.9
on
when
at
ready.
the same time, so if you're using this one,
Taxi to and hold short runway 27 left, using taxiway Papa,
pick one or
Quebec.
the other.
American Pacific 446.
This one here covers over the multifunction display, so you never have this on all the time unless you wanted to. But normally you would want to have the multifunction display for navigation. Over here on the right hand side, you have two ICASs. This is your primary ICAS, similar to what you would see in a Boeing 777. This is unique to the MAX. And again, you can only have one of these on at a time. So turn that one off and you get the secondary ICAS screen. And this is similar to what you would see in an Airbus. I bore the gauges from the Airbus for this. And main reason for having this is so that you can monitor your fuel here. You have an idea of your fuel settings. Not much more in this. If you want to set your trim, you can do it here, but it's not necessary because on the other one, it's right here. So either or, pick your voice in there. But just remember, if you have this one on, you can't have this one on. It's one or the other. So this kind of simulates the touch screen that you see in the MAX series of aircrafts. So there you go. You have a full APU startup, as best can be done in Flight Sim 2004. And I think it's pretty close to the real thing. And again, I had to give full credit to Paul Surratt for doing the APU. I didn't do that. I just brought it over from the 737 NG panel that he created and spruced it up a bit with some additional functionality. You'll notice there's a lot more silicons than what he had. Of course, I have my usuals, the TDS utility for ground service vehicles, my cockpit commander is there, right there, and my fuel computer, that's a must-have. You have to be able to watch your fuel. And if you like the PA system, you got a flight management computer. I don't care for that much. Heads-up display, AI radar, GNS 530. That has a power button on. You need to click. I find that a better GPS than the default one that comes with flight soon. But up here you have the PA system if you're into that. You can have the some people like it, some people don't. And of course you got a pushback gauge. Those are gauges that I've added to give the simulator more functionality. And I think it adds to the overall experience. Now, one thing I want to mention here is the lights, the lighting situation. Of course, you have a panel switch that's available in any cockpit, nothing strange there. Logo lights. I got rid of the original 737 MAX series had a transparency on the tail of the aircraft that gave it a logo light. Problem was that was always on when you had the landing lights on. I didn't like that. I wanted it to come out with a switch, so I did that. That's the only change to that. The strobe lights, you're going to notice two switches come on at once. The reason for that is the strobe lights on this aircraft rely on the engines to be running in order for them to work. And there's no way around that. I've tried everything from an 8-day clock to a clap up under to try to get that to work and couldn't do it. So just keep that in mind when you're taxiing from the runway up to the gate. You can't turn off strobe lights. It's just a limitation of the simulation. The strobe lights come on and the navigation lights come on at the same time. Your beacon lights and of course your wing lights. Now one thing you will notice here, if you turn on the wing lights from a clean start, it's not an issue. You won't have a problem. And that's 99.9% of the time. If, however, for some reason that I can't think of, you turn the wing lights off and then turn them back on while you're on the ground, one side might light up, but the other side won't. You just flick it off and turn it back on again, and they both light up. Again, that's a limitation of the panel, and nothing I can do about it. I've tried everything. And it doesn't happen often. If you're on the ground and you turn the wing lights on, which is what you would normally do, they light up perfectly. It's only if you're on the ground, you turn them on, turn them back off, and then turn them back on again. One side doesn't light up. The chances of that happening are very slim. That's the lighting situation. The taxi lights are standard, as are the landing lights. Nothing new there. So that's it, folks. That's the 737 MAX series panel. Biggest thing is the overhead and the APU. You'll see the APU is not running now. The APU gen light is out, and the aircraft is running on its own engines with its own generators and ready to fly. And when you're shutting this down, first thing you want to do is make sure you're connected to ground power if that's how you start it up, and you'll notice these two lights are on now because we're relying on ground power versus engine power. Then you have to open up your pedestal, and I did this on purpose so that you could do this. The pedestal is overlapped by the overhead, but you still have the fuel cutoff switches, and that kills the engines. The engines go dead, and you'll see the gauges over here are dying down. And the hydraulics are lit up caution. You just turn everything off going across. Again,
Miami
right
Shore
to
7473, taxi to the gate. Shore 7473, taxi to Stand Hotel 10, using taxiway flight 4, flight November 1 to November, Whiskey Papa. Taxiing to Stand Hotel 10, using taxiway Mike 4, flight November 1 November, Whiskey Papa. Short 7473.
Power. And everything is dead. Now the only difference between this setup and if you didn't have ground power is you have to rely on the internal battery of the aircraft. The internal battery of the aircraft has a limited amount of power. In other words, don't try it until you're good at it. Basically what it comes down to. If you open up this little door here, you'll see there's a switch for the battery. And that's the equivalent of this switch when you don't have ground power. So you turn that over to bat, and everything comes to life. The only time you do that is when ground power is not available. Otherwise you use ground power. Once you have everything started, you set that over to automatic, right there, and you just close the door. Your engines, for the purpose of this demonstration, are running, you're ready to fly. I'm not going to go through the whole startup procedure. It's the same as the other one with the ground power. The only difference is you have to open up the bat door right here and set it to bat to get enough power to go through the entire startup procedure. And you have to be pretty quick at it, because if you're not, your batteries are going to go dead before you get a chance to start the engines. And you don't get anywhere, which defeats the purpose. And that, my friends, brings this demonstration to a close. I hope that helps a little bit with the APU startup. Now, one final thing, and I left this to the end, but it's actually the most important part of this whole simulation. In order for this aircraft to work, it doesn't matter if it's the MAX 7, the MAX 8, the MAX 9, or the MAX 10. You can pick whatever aircraft you want out of those four. But one of them has to be set as your default flight in Flight Sim 2004. If it's not, it won't work properly. It won't start the engines. You'll run into problems. So that's one very, very important thing that you have to keep in mind before you even try to use this aircraft. Is the aircraft has to be set as the default flight in Flight Simulator 2004. You have to remember, people, that this is practically state-of-the-art for Flight Sim 2004 to have a working APU. And there are little things along the way that don't work the way you're used to. And you can see the engines are off now and those buttons are not an issue. But that's it. That's the 737 MAX series cockpit. And I'm not expecting to see any major changes. I might fix this flight number and airliner name, move it over to the left a little bit, make it more centered, but other than that, those are just cosmetic things.
When you feel it's hopeless, when you think that you've lost, oh, I will take your hand and we'll rise up from the dust. Oh, here we go, 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 let us heal and grow. You won't be alone, we're unstoppable. Don't be afraid to show what we're going for. This is what we know. Here we come back to life, still breathing, standing up, everybody's gonna see it. All you need to know is that we're holding on.